Claressa Shields just detonated her own career on Facebook last night. And what Papoose did next will shock you. Something happened last night on Facebook that nobody in boxing, nobody in hip-hop, and nobody in the entire Papoose and Remy Ma orbit is ready to talk about honestly. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the champ is losing this fight before she has even stepped inside the ring. Because what the champ did in that comment section was not a reaction. It was a confession. And if you sit with me for the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through every screenshot, every reply, every buried admission, and the one microscopic detail nobody else is pointing out. The detail that quietly reveals what is really happening behind Papoose's phone screen while the champ is supposedly locked away in training camp. Hit that like button before we go any further because we need the algorithm to carry this one. And trust me, by the time we get to the Remy Ma Layer, you are going to want the whole world watching this with us. Good morning to everybody tuning in, and shout out to the ones who already know that when a story like this drops overnight, we are going to break it down the way nobody else on this platform is willing to. This is one of those stories where the person at the center of it keeps telling on themselves in real time, and every new post makes the picture clearer. So let us get right into what actually happened, because the champ decided to repost a message on Facebook last night, and the response she got was so brutal, so relentless, and so surgical that she spent the rest of the night arguing with strangers instead of walking away. Which is exactly the behavior of somebody who is not okay. That is not a woman locked in on a title fight. That is a woman locked into her boyfriend's inbox. Let me set the table for you first because context matters. The champ is one of the most decorated fighters in the entire history of women's boxing. Nobody with a working brain and a working memory disputes that. The champ has trophies, belts, Olympic hardware, and a legitimate case as the greatest female boxer of her generation. That is the resume. That is not up for debate. But somewhere along the way, the champ stopped being a fighter first and started being a girlfriend first, and the girlfriend she chose to be is the girlfriend of a man who is still legally married to somebody else. That somebody else, of course, is Remy Ma. And Remy Ma is not just anybody. Remy Ma is a Grammy-nominated legend of New York rap. Remy Ma is a survivor. Remy Ma is a woman who did 6 years in prison and came back and rebuilt an entire career. Remy Ma is not the type of woman you want in the background of your love story, because Remy Ma is the type of woman whose shadow never actually leaves the room. And that is the trap the champ walked into with her eyes wide open. So here is what went down. Last night, the boxer reposted a message onto her page. The original post, which she did not write, essentially said this. It said the writer was proud to not be one of those women who slides into a taken man's inbox just to bring up his current relationship. The original post questioned why any woman would think that kind of behavior made her look normal, instead of making her look jealous, obsessed, and starved for attention. And that original post on its own was actually pretty coherent. It was a shot at a certain type of woman, and if the boxer had left it alone, it would have died in her feed like 100 other reposts. But the boxer could not leave it alone. The boxer added her own caption on top of it. And that caption was the match on the gasoline. The boxer captioned it, and I quote, "Messaging my man Papoose is diabolical. That's why we block y'all. Just disgusting." Read that again. Slowly. Because that one sentence unlocked more questions than any of the boxer's opponents have ever managed to unlock in 12 rounds. Which women are messaging Papoose? How does she know? Is Papoose sitting there forwarding every DM to his girlfriend like a customer service inbox? Or, and this is the part everybody in that comment section jumped on immediately, is she sitting inside Papoose's account herself, reading every message that lands, refreshing his notifications, and firing off replies as if she were him? Because that is the accusation that has been trailing this couple for months. And she, with that one caption, basically walked over to the door of that accusation, opened it, invited it in, and offered it a plate. That is where the comment section turned into a war zone. And instead of pretending she did not see it, she did the one thing every publicist on earth would have begged her not to do. She started arguing back. One by one. Reply after reply. For hours. Now let me pause here because there is a bigger pattern worth pointing at. She has publicly admitted on the record that she abstains from intimacy for 6 full weeks leading up to a fight. 6 weeks. That is a long window. And during that window, she is not next to Papoose. She is in camp. She is running, sparring, cutting weight, and sleeping in a completely different rhythm than the man she is dating. which means mathematically, she has no earthly idea what Papoose is doing, who he is talking to, or whose DMs he is opening at 2 in the morning. She cannot know. She is not there. And that gap, that 6-week blind spot, is exactly where insecurity is born. Because when you cannot see somebody, you start imagining what they are doing. And when you start imagining what they are doing, you start monitoring. And when you start monitoring, you eventually start responding. And that, I would argue, is what we watched the fighter do in real time last night on her own Facebook page. Remember the Aruba trip? Just a few weeks back, the fighter came home from that vacation looking like a completely different woman. Relaxed, glowing, unbothered, confident, almost detached in the healthiest way. But now that another fight is on the calendar, and Papoose is a plane ride away, the whole vibe has flipped. The fighter is smiling for the cameras. She is posting the training footage. She is doing the interviews about locking in. But if you actually read her behavior instead of just watching her highlight reel, you can see something is off. Because the woman posting from Aruba was not arguing with strangers about her boyfriend's inbox. The woman posting from Aruba was living. The woman on Facebook last night was surveilling. And I will say this out loud even if it is not the popular take. I do not think the fighter wants to be a fighter anymore. Not really. I think the fighter wants the influencer life. The travel. The parties. The fits. The brand deals. The videos with Papoose. That, to me, is the version of the fighter that seems most alive. Boxing looks more and more like the thing the champion still has to do to fund the life she actually wants to live. And when boxing is the job and Papoose is the reward, every training camp starts to feel like a punishment. That is not me hating on the champion. That is me watching her energy in every clip she posts and telling you what my eyes and my ears are picking up. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable, because we still have not addressed the elephant in every one of these comment threads. The elephant is this. If the champion is out here condemning women who message a taken man, then somebody has to ask on the record, was that not exactly how the champion ended up with Papoose in the first place? Papoose has publicly discussed the timeline. Papoose has said, in his own words, that the champion reached out to him. Papoose has said the two-division title holder invited him to a fight. Papoose has said the two-division title holder extended the first hand. And Papoose, at that point, was a legally married man. Still is, actually. He is still legally tied to Remy Ma right now, at the time of this recording. There is no divorce decree in the public record that closes that chapter. So when this woman sits on Facebook and lectures other women for messaging my man, the entire internet has the receipts to remind her that she was the woman messaging somebody else's man not that long ago. That is not an opinion. That is a timeline. And that is the contradiction that lit up her comment section last night. Let us walk through the specific replies because this is where this woman really lost the plot. One woman commented, and this was actually a supportive comment, mind you. She wrote, "Claressa, I usually defend you when you are right, but you should have skipped this one because these comments are about to go crazy. That was gentle. That was almost a warning shot from an ally." And how did this woman respond? She fired back with, "I'll blaze you down to the ground. Go away, lunch lady. Blaze you down to the ground. Lunch lady." Read that a second time. This is a world champion boxer telling a Facebook commenter she is going to blaze her down to the ground over a repost about her boyfriend. That is not a champion voice. That is not a locked-in camp voice. That is a middle school lunchroom voice. And when a two-division, undisputed world champion is talking like she is picking a fight in a hallway, you know the emotional temperature is nuclear. Because think about what blaze you down to the ground actually implies. Somebody is on Facebook. Somebody this woman is never going to meet. Somebody she has never trained across from. Somebody she has never even seen in person. And the Flint native is threatening to burn that stranger down. Over a comment. On a repost. About Papoose. That reaction is not proportional. That reaction is emotional dysregulation dressed up as toughness. And every reply after that one only made the picture worse. The next comment came in with a classic, "Ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun." Everybody who has ever been on the internet knows what that phrase means. It is a boomerang line. It means, you did this first, And now it is coming back around on you. Simple. Universal. The Flint native understood it. Everybody watching understood it. But the undisputed queen of the ring, instead of engaging with the meaning, decided to play dumb. The undisputed queen of the ring wrote back, "Maybe I should have spelled it out. What gun are you talking about? Y'all are losers." Now think about how weak that is as a rhetorical move. If the Olympic gold medalist truly did not understand the reference, she would not have replied at all. The fact that she replied, the fact that she reached for the loser's insult, tells you the line landed. It hit, it bruised, and her only counter was to pretend she did not feel it. That is the tell. Then came, "Fair game, babes." 2 words, almost polite, and the Olympic gold medalist responded, "Y'all are inboxing him begging him to get back with his ex. Y'all are losers." Wait a second. Stop the tape. How does she know what is in Papoose's inbox? How does she know women are asking Papoose to get back with Remy Ma? Where is that information coming from? Because Papoose, a grown man who raps for a living, is almost certainly not sitting down at the end of every day and reading his DMs out loud to his girlfriend like a bedtime story. That is not real life. That is not how any relationship functions. The only way she knows what is in Papoose's inbox is if she is inside Papoose's inbox. That is not a wild theory. That is the most obvious explanation on the board. Instagram. That is my guess. Papoose lives on Instagram. Papoose responds on Instagram. Papoose is tagged on Instagram every day. If she has that login, then she is not just monitoring. She is running patrols. And now let us layer on the second bombshell she dropped in that reply. She said, out loud, in public, in writing, that women are begging Papoose to get back together with Remy Ma. Excuse me? Who? Where? Because Remy Ma has been focused on Remy Ma. Remy Ma has been recording, performing, mothering her kids, and rebuilding a version of her life that does not include Papoose in the frame. Nobody serious, nobody credible, nobody with a platform is out here begging Papoose to run back to Remy Ma. So who exactly is the pound-for-pound star talking about? And more importantly, why does the mere idea of a Remy Ma comeback shake the pound-for-pound star to the core badly enough that she is bringing it up unprompted on her own page? That right there is projection. That is Claressa Shields telling the world what she is scared of. And what Claressa Shields is scared of is Remy Ma walking back into the picture and closing it. Because think about this. Papoose has a tattoo tied to Remy Ma. A real one. On his skin. Public knowledge. Photographed 100 times. That ink does not evaporate because Papoose posted a new girlfriend on Instagram. That ink is a permanent monument to the woman he married. Every single time Papoose takes his shirt off, that reminder is right there in the room with Claressa Shields. And no amount of Aruba, no amount of vacation footage, no amount of matching outfits erases the fact that the man Claressa Shields is fighting to keep is a man whose body still literally advertises the woman before her. That is a heavy thing to live with. And I think honestly that is what actually breaks through in these Facebook meltdowns. It is not the strangers. It is the mirror. Let me keep going because there is more. Another commenter dropped, "Karma stings, doesn't it?" For words. Claressa Shields fired back. "What karma? We pay y'all dust, losers." Now if you actually pay somebody dust, guess what happens? Nothing. Silence. You keep scrolling. You do not respond. That is what the phrase means. That is the entire premise of the phrase. But Claressa Shields is responding to almost every comment, with laughing emojis, with insults, with threats. So the "we pay y'all dust" line is doing the opposite of what she thinks it is doing. It is proof that Claressa Shields is not paying anybody dust. Claressa Shields is paying everybody rent. She is renting real estate in her own head to strangers. For free. All night. And every reply just extends the lease. Then somebody wrote, "He's a free agent, isn't he?" And Claressa Shields responded by calling that person a loser. Again. Loser is the go-to word of the night. But look at the actual claim inside that comment. Free agent. The commenter is not saying Papoose is doing anything wrong. The commenter is pointing out that Papoose is not legally off the market. That is a fact. That is documented. And every time Claressa Shields swings at that fact, she gives it more oxygen. Because you cannot argue a man into being divorced by yelling at strangers on Facebook. Divorce is a court process. It happens in a courthouse, not in a comment section. And then came the final exchange of the night, the one that quietly gave up the whole game. Somebody asked, plainly, "Didn't you do the exact same thing though?" Claressa Shields answered, "Girl, I invited him to my fight and he was single. You'll need to be quiet. Read that again. Read every word. I invited him. He was single." Two claims. And both of them, respectfully, do not survive the daylight. Because if I could have added one follow-up to that thread, I would have asked this. Claressa Shields, if you and Remy Ma were on good terms at the time, and by multiple public accounts you two were at minimum civil, then why was Remy Ma not also invited to that same fight? You and Remy Ma were reportedly in contact. You were reportedly cordial. So if you were building a guest list, why did Papoose make the list and Remy Ma did not? That is a question I have never, ever heard put to Claressa Shields directly. And it is the question the timeline is begging somebody to ask. Because single is the second word that does not survive daylight. Legally, a man who is still married is not single. That is not a slogan. That is a definition. A judge has to sign a paper. Until that paper is signed, single is a marketing term, not a legal one. So when Claressa Shields tells the internet that Papoose was single when she invited him to that fight, she is using a word that the law does not agree with. And the critics in her comments know it. That is why the phrase free agent keeps coming back. That is why karma stings keeps landing. That is why every strand of this story keeps folding back on itself. And now let us bring Remy Ma back into the frame, because Remy Ma is the ghost in every single one of these arguments, whether Claressa Shields says her name or not. Papoose once claimed, publicly, that he wrote a huge portion of Remy Ma's catalog. That is on record. Papoose has said it. But if that were the whole story, if Remy Ma were nothing without Papoose in the studio, then how do you explain the fact that Remy Ma is still building, still charting, still touring, still headlining, still nominated, still respected? Because a rapper who was purely a ghostwriter's puppet does not survive a divorce. A rapper who was purely a ghostwriter's puppet collapses without her writer. Remy Ma did not collapse. Remy Ma pivoted. And that pivot alone should tell you which one of them was carrying the pen. So when Claressa Shields taunts a comment section by insisting that women are begging Papoose to get back with Remy Ma, the deeper truth is almost the opposite. The world is not begging Papoose to run back to Remy Ma. The world is watching Remy Ma glide forward without him. And that difference is the difference that eats at people. Because being replaced is one story. Being outgrown is another. And I think Claressa Shields senses which story is actually unfolding here. Now, if you are still watching, hit that like button one more time, because I want to be really honest with you about something. I am not standing here to dance on Claressa Shields. Claressa Shields is a legitimate athlete. Claressa Shields has done things in the ring that most human beings could never do. Claressa Shields has earned her spot in the record books. This is not a video about tearing down her career. This is a video about a very specific pattern, and that pattern is that every single time Papoose becomes the topic, Claressa Shields loses her composure. Every single time. And a fighter who cannot keep her composure over a Facebook comment is a fighter who is bringing a very dangerous distraction into a very unforgiving sport. Because you cannot take a Facebook argument into the ring. You cannot punch a comment. You cannot knock out a screenshot. And every hour Claressa Shields spends fighting strangers is an hour Claressa Shields is not sharpening the actual weapons she is going to need against a real opponent with real gloves and a real game plan. That right there is the piece nobody is naming. There is also something else worth flagging, because this is the layer the mainstream sports coverage will not touch. This entire meltdown happened during training camp. Training camp is supposed to be a bubble. Training camp is supposed to be a monastery. Phones down. Distractions off. Focus on. The old school trainers, the ones who built the fighters we still talk about today, would have snatched a phone out of Claressa Shields' hand the second that first reply went up. Because when your fighter is arguing with random people on Facebook at midnight over her boyfriend's inbox, your fighter is not in camp. Your fighter is in a relationship crisis with training equipment nearby. And if the people around Claressa Shields cannot tell her that plainly, then the people around Claressa Shields are not protecting her. They are enabling her. And that is when a career starts to slip. Not with a knockout, with a distraction. Let us zoom back out for a second. What is the bigger picture here? The bigger picture is that Claressa Shields is fighting a war on 3 fronts at the same time, and only one of those fronts is actually a boxing match. Front 1 is the ring, where she still needs to prove she is the greatest ever. Front 2 is the internet, where she is trying to defend a relationship that the public has already decided has a shaky foundation. Front 3 is the mirror, where she is trying to convince herself that everything is fine, everything is calm, and everything is under control when the evidence in her own comment section says otherwise. Nobody, no matter how gifted, wins a war on 3 fronts. Napoleon could not do it. Hitler could not do it. And a champion boxer with a phone in her hand at midnight cannot do it either. Something has to give. And when something gives, it usually gives in the ring first. Because the ring does not lie. The ring does not care about your caption. The ring does not care about your relationship. The ring is going to ask you a very simple question. Did you train or did you tweet? And whichever answer is true is the answer that will show up in round 4. And that leads me to my honest read of where this ends. Because I have watched enough of these stories play out to see the shape of it. Claressa Shields is not going to walk this back. Claressa Shields is not going to log off. Claressa Shields is not going to stop responding. Because at this point, the fight with the comment section is emotionally more urgent to Claressa Shields than the fight in her actual calendar. And that is a terrifying place to be as an athlete. Meanwhile, Papoose is going to keep doing what Papoose does. Papoose is going to post. Papoose is going to smile. Papoose is going to release music. Papoose is going to move through this like the man he has always been, which is a man who somehow always ends up standing in the middle of a storm that other people got caught in. And Remy Ma is going to keep building. Remy Ma is going to keep releasing. Remy Ma is going to keep showing up on stages and podcasts and songs and never once bring up Claressa Shields by name, because Remy Ma understands the oldest power move in the game, which is refusing to acknowledge the person who desperately wants you to. That silence is what is going to haunt this whole situation for years. So let me leave you with this, and I want you to sit with it before you drop your comment. When Claressa Shields wrote, "Messaging my man Papoose is diabolical," what she really told all of us, without meaning to, is that she is watching that inbox. She is watching it closely. She is watching it often. She is watching it during camp. She is watching it instead of sleeping. She is watching it instead of training. She is watching it instead of being present in her own championship life. And a boxer who is watching her boyfriend's phone is a boxer who has already lost her focus. And a boxer who has lost her focus is a boxer who is one bad round away from losing a lot more than a Facebook argument. Now I want your take, because this one is not simple, and the comment section is going to be a movie. Do you think Claressa Shields is inside Papoose's account replying as him? Do you think Papoose is genuinely locked in with Claressa Shields? Or is he running the same play he has run before? Do you think Remy Ma will ever publicly respond to any of this? Or will Remy Ma keep letting the silence do the work? And here is my real question, the one I want at the top of the comments. If Claressa Shields walks into her next fight with this much noise still in her head, does she win? Or does she get exposed in front of the whole world? Drop your answer. Drop your receipts. Drop your predictions. Because when the bell rings, we are going to come back to this video, and we are going to see who called it. I have got another breakdown coming before I head out of town in a couple of days, so if you want to catch that one live, make sure the notification bell is on. Hit subscribe if you have not already, and while you are here, go check the next video on your screen right now because it connects directly to everything I just laid out for you. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next in this story. Because if last night on Facebook was the first crack, the next chapter is where the whole thing splits wide open. And when it does, we will be right here to break it down, frame by frame, the way nobody else on this platform is willing to do it.